rideshare driver that drives for Uber and Lyft. Joe currently uses multiple phones to efficiently drive for Uber and Lyft. But this can be a pain at times and very unsafe. That was until Joe found Maximo, the rideshare app that automates Uber and Lyft ride requests. Maximo will use the filters set by Joe, like time, distance, and passenger rating, to determine which rides are best suited for Joe. When a ride request comes in, Joe doesn't need to worry. Maximo will automatically accept the ride request that matches his filters, and then turn off the app that isn't currently on a ride. Once Joe finishes the ride, Maximo will turn everything back on. This will allow Joe to focus more on his passengers and driving safe.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back for another week of Rideshare Rodeo. This week, I have John Mikaelian, who is kind of, he's got an assorted background a little bit. I think we're gonna touch on his work in the gig industry, but also on his 3 books, and kind of just from what I've seen of his books and from what I know of him, just kind of his take on a lot of things. So yeah, John, thank you for joining us here today. I really want to make sure that people understand, because I know that when I first came to YouTube, I saw you all over live chats, but I didn't know who you were. And then I still didn't know who you were for a while. And you and I were even talking in live chats, but it was, I just figured you were a gig worker. But I think that a lot of your stuff actually falls outside of gig work, even though you do some gig work. So before we get to the 3 books, because we'll end with those, but can you give us some background on you and how you got to kind of where we are now, and what part the gig world played in this?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, thanks for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, of course.
We're gonna have a blast. So with me, I've been in retail sales for about 9 or 10 years, and so I had some customer service experience going into gig work. I know that whenever a problem comes up, it's really important to de-escalate and all that good stuff. The reason why I got into gig work in 2018 is because I had a bunch of student loan debt. I graduated with my bachelor's degree in business administration with a focus on marketing and management from Cal State LA, and and I know going to college now, a lot of people say it's a waste of time and stuff, but I don't have any regrets. But yeah, basically I graduated, had $30,000 in student loan debt, and at first I was already working 9 to 5, and so I knew I needed to get a second and third job to be able to pay that student loan off really really quickly, and so I applied to W-2s like Starbucks, restaurants, so that I can work from like 6 to 10 or 6 to 11, and then do the same thing over the next day. And a lot of the places I interviewed for, they wanted to hire me, but they realized that they're going to be not really on the back burner, but they're going to be my second job. And so they wanted me to work until midnight or 1 a.m. I'm like, hey, I can't do that. I got to go to another job the next day. So that didn't work out. And that's when I came across gig work. I knew that I didn't want to do rideshare. Props to you guys who do rideshare. I personally don't want strangers in my car. That's how I feel about it. I don't even want other people driving my car. So,
well, the passengers don't ever drive, so.
Well, like even my parents, they're like, "Hey, can I borrow your car for work?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah, no, I get the not wanting to have the strangers in the car, especially. I mean, if you're listening today, as opposed to even 5-6 years ago, it's a night and day difference from even then. Even though there were issues, nothing like what it is now.
Yeah, exactly. So I started with food delivery. My very first app was actually Uber Eats in 2018, and it's funny because back then they didn't show payout, they didn't show a tip, they didn't show where you were going, which restaurant it was. It was very similar to rideshare. It would just say like, oh, 3 minutes away or 4 minutes away. And oddly enough, they're actually doing a lot of that now, but a lot of the newbies don't realize that it was like that back then. And you know what? It's weird because in LA, you would think that a lot of people would tip, but when I was doing those deliveries, I'd be lucky if half the people tipped. And so, there were times where I would drive,
especially through Uber. I know that I think right out of the gate, Uber Eats, even in 2016, 17, when it had that soft launch, had the tipping capabilities, but Uber had created a culture of no tipping. And
when I was just gonna say that whenever you ordered as a customer, it would be like an afterthought. They would after the order was dropped off, it would say, "Hey, rate and tip your driver," but they didn't push it as much as they do now. So sometimes I would drive from the San Fernando Valley to UCLA Westwood area, which is about 20-mile drive, and I wouldn't get any tips. It would just be all mileage and time, and so I kind of got tired of it. I realized that I was kind of my wheels were stuck in the mud, so to speak, and that's when I found DoorDash. DoorDash back then, it was when they were stealing tips, so they were paying $5-6 payouts, but it was very consistent. And I've been doing DoorDash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats since then, basically just multi-apping.
Yeah. So is that, how many hours a week do you put in with those?
It's usually about 40 hours, 45 hours. I work the inner shift because that's when it's really busy in my market.
Yeah. So, okay. So, obviously at Para, we didn't like the, when they were stealing tips either. So we kind of took our own route to it.
I don't blame you.
Which, by the way, guys, Para's back, but you can merge Para with the Maximo. Somebody was asking me if you could merge Gary Middleton's apps like DUH with Para. I was like, yeah, absolutely, dude. They're like, awesome. It's like putting two candies together, man.
Kind of like going to McDonald's and putting a Big Mac and a Quarter Pounder together.
Yeah, I mean, now you're asking for only unicorns to show, and only within my parameters. So,
got to give some leeway, right?
Yeah, I mean. So I know that one of the big things that you and I absolutely stand strong on, and you're in California, so this is a good topic, is that I'm absolutely 100% independent contractor. I know that you want to be too. If it ever led to, that they had to use a franchise or employment model of any sorts, I'm guessing that you wouldn't even carry on for another day with these companies.
Correct. It just wouldn't be worth it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. All of us say that, and maybe a lot of people for the first time on these podcasts or whatever hear it, and they're like, "How do you know? How do you know that?" And I guess that just comes from years of experience. I can tell you, if they are forced into their hand being that this is how you will operate your company, they're going to do it to such a level that it's going to be the last company you ever want to work for. I mean, this is why they're not throwing away hundreds of millions upon hundreds of millions in every state to fight this, because they're willing to do it if it comes to it. This is more of how I see it. It's more of a fight. Like, we'll fight it, and if we lose it in a state, then that state can kiss Rideshare goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
Until they come back around and then take away those displaced type laws. Here's my big issue with AB5. When I first learned about it, and I've talked with people on both sides, this, and I even catch some heat for that. How come you talk to Willie Solis or Vina Dubal? And I always say that, how can you really understand everything unless you're talking to both sides? And I can have people on all day who agree with me. It's easy. It's hard to get the people on when you've made your position on something and it doesn't fit their position, and then you can still have a conversation with that person. Is pretty big. I mean, that's what it really is about. That's how the real work gets done. But yeah, so I was like hating when I was seeing an AB5, but then I got turned on to all these people, and you've probably seen some of the videos or heard some of the stuff I've done with a lot of like the writers and freelancers and stuff against AB5. And I got tied in with their group and learned so much about even the fight itself, and how in the beginning it was everybody. And then obviously the doctors were chiseled away and carved out, and then the lawyers, then this, and that their group of anti-AB5 or let's get rid of AB5 kind of became smaller and smaller and smaller, because sadly, if your group got carved out, you kind of stopped fighting the fight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I know it's sad, and and a lot of us can relate to this because it's sad, but it's true. I mean, like if you're fighting for something and you've lost your income and you're just fighting, and then you get your carve out, it's hard to put that time in to keep fighting it. If you got your carve out, it's just sad to watch that. That's kind of what they did. Where are the big numbers? Let's carve them out, and just kind of leaving everybody else for like table scraps during the pandemic. That's how I saw it. There's a lot of people I know who had 30, 40 year businesses that a lot of them are still struggling, but who have gone completely under at this point. Who had, I mean, never, you know, their first 5 years, let's say, were the struggling years, and then 35 years they've been in the profit and running a great business. Pandemic hits, AB5 comes along, and they don't even give a temporary reprieve or anything. And I kind of relate Prop 22, the solution of Prop 22, and I want to forewarn people about Prop 22 because even though it has an upside, a little bit, I see it a little bit more like the temporary gas incentive, as it's the lowest ball, weakest offer they can make that you can just cling on to and say, I got something a little better. That's how I see it. You know, I mean, that's 45 to 55 cents per whatever on Uber, you know, whether it be
Per
Uber
trip.
Eats or a ride, whichever one. I mean, let's say it's trips. Yeah, let's say you're doing rideshare. If you do 10 in a day, so in the medium being, if it's 45 to 55 cents, medium being 50 cents, so 10 rides is $5. I mean, if people really think that $5 for spending the whole day out doing 10 rides is supplementing the gas to a level where they're a lot better off, I put them to the challenge of, I know that every 5 helps, but honestly, would you be dead in the water without that 5? Because if you wouldn't, it's a lot better to the cause to not want it. Don't take it. Let some of the people fall by the wayside. And I know Uber wants it to stay oversaturated, and it still will be, but why not? I don't know. Why not? I guess my question here is, how do you feel about Prop 22 being in the state where it is? And I'm sure that part of it is it's a good thing because it can help you in some ways, but do you see it at all like a bad thing for those states that are about to enter these same type fights?
Personally, I really like Prop 22. I think it's the best of both worlds. It's the best hybrid of being an independent contractor and being an employee because you still get that guaranteed hourly as long as you stay active on the apps. And the thing is that when I talk to people outside of California, they think it's a ton of money, and it's really not. For me, it averages about 10% of my weekly pay. So like, let's say if I make $500 on DoorDash, I'll usually get about 50, $60, and it's enough to cover my gas and my and the wear and tear on my car. But at the same time, it's just I'm not gonna go out of my way and accepting these low tip orders because the thing is that I don't know if DoorDash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats or Uber are correctly calculating the active time. You can't really depend on that. And also, I would say that Prop 22 might be hurting drivers overall on national stance because I think a lot of people are accepting these $34 or $5 in California because they know they're going to get something on the back end with Prop 22. And I think it's a mixed bag. When I go out there, I don't know if it's because I've been doing this for such a long time, since 2018, but I don't go out there depending on Prop 22. I go out there and take a decent order. If it's like $8 or $9 going a few miles, I'll take it. But I'm never going to do anything below $7, $6.50 because honestly, it's just not worth my time. But if other states get it, if it's the same way as it is in California, I think it's really beneficial to them because, well, the thing with California is that cost of living is just so high here. So yeah, obviously,
Right.
a higher the hourly or the active hourly guarantee could always be better. But honestly, I'm thankful for it, and I would argue that whoever wants, the benefits of being an employee, like steady income, insurance, and all that stuff, why don't you become a pizza driver or at least try it out? Because they have
Right.
exactly what you want. So why not try that out?
Or I've even said to people, I've put the challenge out there of, man, if you ever wanted, I mean, within realistic boundaries, if you ever wanted any job that you want, right now is the time to go for it. because people are lacking at fast food restaurants. They don't have enough employees. So
Everyone's
yes,
quitting to DoorDash.
right. But I'm saying, like, if you ever had, if not, I'm not saying to go into fast food, but if, like, let's say you've been in fast food, let's say you've done gig work and all this, and you've always thought that you wanted to, be a graphic designer. I'm just pulling this out of left field. So, okay. So let's say you want to be a graphic designer, but you really didn't have the training, that you've kind of like self-learned some Photoshop, some Illustrator, all the Adobe products and things of that nature on your own. You're self-taught like many. And, you're just like, I just never did the schooling though. Where before the pandemic and everything, yes, the schooling and all that was needed just for the fact of saying you had it. But I think that right now you could go out and apply for those type jobs. I think that you could shock yourself right now with what you could get with a job. I think that whatever you've set your limits at is, I can't get anything above this in life. And this kind of relates to how you think in a lot of your books, or in the one I'm looking at. It's like, being the best version of you, and like, and like making the most of who you are. So if you kind of, and we all do it, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but like like before the pandemic, like I knew, like, and my expectations on myself are high, but let's say they're here. Right now I feel like I could go to here. I could go a little, I could step a little outside that comfort zone and go for something, because they're having trouble just putting people into seats right now. I mean, especially if you're willing to go back and work out of the house if you want a W-2. This is just a side note here. I'm just saying this is that time to roll the dice and take a shot, I believe. But my problem with Prop 22 is that it came from the gig companies spending $212 million and the state of California spending $135 million. You add those two together, we're just shy of $350 million that was wasted, completely wasted, to come to an agreement that you even just said maybe puts 10% more on. I know that's a good little bump, but I feel that, like, if now they got to go to Massachusetts and do this, and New Jersey, and then they're going to have to go to Washington State. And it's in Massachusetts, it already looks like it's going to have to be about the same amount, if not more. So let's call that 350. Let's call New Jersey 3 and Washington State 3. If they're going to throw in close to $1 billion in 3 states over the next, 18 months, let's say, to try and pass legislation to have AB5 type rulings, that's just 3 of the states, and it's close to $1 billion. And we all know that could be better spent. People want to rip on Uber and Lyft and say, they're just out for themselves. Of course they are, dude. They're a company. If you don't know that already, this is what I always challenge you with, is go find a W-2 job. Because then people do, and they're like, look, I got locked in at this. I'm like, locked in? You could be fired tomorrow. There is nothing locked.
A lot of people learn that the hard way during the pandemic.
Yeah,
you realize that no job is stable.
Yeah, you're not, and you're never locked in. I mean, if it's your company and you can keep it afloat forever, sure, if you want to be, but even if you're 100% certain you've known the people who own the company since birth, they're like your godfather, and your, all this, that, and the other, you still don't know. You don't know what tomorrow brings at a job. So you can pick on the gig economy all you want. It is still in your realm. You get to decide what you're going to do, when you're going to work, all this kind of stuff. And that is one nice thing about Prop 22. I just feel like it was a very low ball acceptance. And because of the amount of money that these platforms had to spend, and looking ahead at the other states that they were going to have to fight, that they are kind of almost taking it out on drivers. Like, hey, we need to pay for that Prop 22 crap, so you guys are all taking a hit.
Can I play devil's advocate?
Yeah, go ahead, please. I mean, you're living in the state with it, so please.
Right. So this is business John talking now. I think the way these companies, these large corporations with a lot of money and power, the way to look at it is that, they spent $200 million over the course of the year fighting against AB5. But I think the way they look at it is that this is chump change compared to the money they'd be saving if we all became employees in the state of California from 10, 20 years from now. That's how they're looking at it. So, like, let's say if they did the math and it cost them, I don't know, close to $500 million, $600 million, and they saved $400 million. So I think that's the way they're looking at it. And then also, I know a lot of people are worried about self-driving cars, and automation and all this stuff. But do you think that these companies really would have spent that money if self-driving cars and technology was there right around the corner? I don't think so. They know that that technology is still a ways away, and that's why they spent all that money.
Yeah, I mean, I'm having the one of the engineers on from the Bolt Autonomous division who I've talked to a
Nice.
couple times, and I don't know if I was jokingly already told you this or not, but he's already told me. He said like, not in your lifetime. I mean, he like literally said like, I probably won't even see a real autonomous vehicle.
Hmm.
Like, he was saying 2050 that maybe, you know, kind of like circular trips, like a bus that just goes around a block.
Because the thing is that there's going to be a lot of challenges. Like driving an open road in a suburb or on a country road is easy because there's not that many moving parts. But when you're in a city, when there's people walking, there's other cars driving, there's just so much going on that the technology to develop those sensors and all that programming, it's just going to take so much time.
Well, and there's just issues beyond control too. Even the trucking industry is into the logistics of it, and they're having
Right.
issues out every angle with the lidar. I mean, the lidar shuts down in snow. I live
Wow.
in Colorado, so okay. So if it's snowing, you can't use that rideshare. I mean, it's, you know, and then a lot of people don't like. I brought up just silly little things too, like, well, what happens like if the first ride of the day they clean it, they send out the autonomous car, and the guy gets in and he pukes in it? I mean, is it all
It could
being
happen.
live video cameras? They have to summon it back in, or is it just? I mean, because I imagine graffiti. I imagine this thing looking like an autonomous vehicle looking like the New York
The trains,
subway.
subways.
Yeah, like in about 48 hours, like 2 shifts, and this thing's going to be all graffitied, puked in, pee in there. I don't know, man. Sex
It's a
goes
really good
down in
point.
there. I mean, who knows what's going to go if seriously, no driver. I mean, people might just live in there.
That's a really good point. Never thought about
You
that.
know, like, hey, take me to I don't know what the equivalent would be for you, but like for us, like anything east of Denver, anything west of Denver, you're in the mountains and you get all into the fun stuff. But anything east just gets into the plains. So like if you said take me to Sterling, Colorado, which is on the Kansas border, okay, well then you just have it take you out to some field till it gets another call.
Hmm.
Okay, well you just created a party place for a weekend or something. Like I don't know. I just I can pick apart autonomous like all day long. I don't think it's even. I think that you hit the nail on the head with that one. What I will say about the Prop
Also,
22.
charging is an issue as well. Where are all these
Yeah,
cars
yeah,
going to
yeah,
charge? There's the infrastructure's not there yet.
yeah. But on the Prop 22 thing, you know, here's the other side of it though. They would have never done that or anything for drivers unless they went and had to battle it out in court and spend $350 million. Like there was nothing coming down the pipe on their own for drivers. And so at this point, Prop 22 is helping out the gig economy some, but look at all the traditional um, freelancers and people who have just been like locked out of being able to even have that freedom. It's very strange. It's very strange that the whole net was cast over everybody because here's how I see it. AB5 should have been directly going after the gig economy for the way it's classified and not thrown a net over everybody who's independent contractor. It should have been going after the gig economy, and then that should have been the solution. But I just obviously there's we know how these companies and their algorithms work. So obviously there's a way that they say what is the very least we can do to make it look like we're doing something for these
Mm.
guys, but we still and I know that they don't turn a profit, so but eventually the thought is there to do it. But I mean, they're never working on what's how can we meet the drivers in the middle? That's not even a thought of theirs. It's always what is the least we can do.
How can we exploit them?
Right? They don't care about. I mean, and I'm gonna just be honest here. They don't care about our safety. They don't care about. They don't. I mean, like I know that when something happens, you'll see an article come out, and then you'll see like if it's a really bad, horrific thing to like a college student or to like something that's making just too much noise in the media, then you'll see if, and mark my words on this, then you'll see, or after like a weekend where in a few different cities, some people were killed in Ubers, then you'll see like a new safety feature come out for like a month, about a week after that, just to get in the news and populate it and push a PR front that we're all about safety, when really they're just like, we're all about you guys forgetting about that this happened. So for a month, we're going to push some positive news, and then we're going to back off. I mean, people are still going to take it anyway. I just think that all these states that are doing this fight now, I mean, I feel like they're all in for the same solution that you guys have. So it's almost like, is it worth these fights? Is it worth the Prop 22 fight in Massachusetts? The state will rule what they want to rule. They have the ABC test in place. They'll have it challenged. Uber, Lyft, Instacart, and DoorDash will spend 200 plus million, and then they will get a carve out from whatever said law they make. I mean, that's the story. I could write it right now before it even happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be similar to what happened in California. But my question to you is, what would be the alternative? Like, let's say they don't fight for it, or a similar thing to Prop 22 doesn't happen. Then you're still going to have disgruntled and underpaid drivers. I'm not saying that Prop 22 makes drivers well off or anything, but what do you think is the alternative?
I don't think there's a good one, to be honest. I think the alternative is holding out. Just like I feel with the gas incentive. I know that, a lot of people don't like that opinion. It's just mine. I've been doing this for a long time, and I honestly think the little things that I've learned their tricks. I mean, I watched them. We all watch them. They play games. We play games on making money. Do this and you get this bonus. You go up to this level. You're this. You get a little avatar. Here you go. Like, good for you. Pat on the back type stuff. And then it's really, especially in rideshare, man, that used to be like, I hated that stuff, especially when they were huge, because if it was like a huge bonus to like hit 100 rides in a week, like huge, I knew around 90, that was going to slow down so much, where I was going to be like, damn it. Like, no matter how my week went,
that's
I knew
how
at
they're
90,
programmed.
Yeah, I knew at 90, it's going to be like, I'm going to get a ride an hour at best.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it works. They just like, we want you on the platform. And so then it starts like skewing down what you think you made hourly. I don't know. I've never been impressed by their games. I think that this is kind of just another example of their games. Because if they actually just they want every market oversaturated. I understand why that was a good start, but I don't think that they need to keep that thought process up right now. I think that semi-saturated is good enough. And that would allow a little more pay to drivers from them, the company, which is what's real. Because Prop 22, the Prop 22 decision's already being challenged in the California Supreme Court. So it's like, if it goes away, then what? It's I don't know. I just feel like it needs to be the companies that do these things, not when you start forcing things down the company's throat, they're going to start getting very evil. And if you think they're evil and manipulative now, just wait. Because I guarantee they will, they're now, we've never been their priority, but now they're like, okay, we don't even care anymore. Oversaturate everything. Do this, do that. I don't care. Like, if you had a few people like going, well, we got to help the drivers some, even they're off board. They're like, dude, we're in D-Day mode. It's time to, screw the drivers.
I think I'm glad you brought that up, because I think Grubhub, I'm not sure how familiar you are with Grubhub, but Grubhub is actually, I would say they're probably as pro driver as one of these gig apps can get. They don't have any tips.
And they always have been too.
Right. They've been very transparent.
I'll give Grubhub some props on that, because even before the pandemic, they onboarded slowly. They didn't like to oversaturate.
Right.
But then the pandemic hit, and all these other companies that are shady-ish, DoorDash and Uber Eats, somehow got way in front of them and kind of left them in the dust. And then they were kind of trying to pick up the pieces. But I think I know where you're going with this. I'm going to let you finish it with it, because go ahead.
So the thing is that we as drivers like the transparent and all that stuff, but as a business model, I don't think it's sustainable, because Grubhub, they're not in a good position right now financially. And honestly, I know this is going to sound pessimistic, but I'll probably give them another year or two max before they're probably sold off by Uber or someone else. And so I think these companies have done the math, and they've realized that if they're not manipulative and exploitative and all these bad practices, then they're not going to survive. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of these seeing them, a lot of us not battling it out to not for us to not become employees, because I can guarantee you that they've done the math, between having independent contractors and having us employees, and they realize that if we are employees, if they have to pay us benefits and hourly, it's not worth it. So it's better for them to pull out anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Jason Thierry and I have had this thing about Lyft forever, and we talk all the time. We always come up with, it's almost like we're betting amongst us, because we're like always talking about these new angles. It's like, who is Lyft going to fold to first? Because like we're just assuming that Lyft is like, and it's like we've finally gotten down to like where we're at this point where like we want it to be Grubhub. We feel like Lyft and Grubhub would be this awesome match, because otherwise both of us have kind of come to the same conclusion that Lyft is on track to be owned by DoorDash here very shortly.
Do you think they want to get into the rideshare business though?
I think that the command DoorDash has of the food market would make them just want to have Lyft, because even though it's not profitable, it's not a loss at this point either. I don't think Lyft has much to offer. I don't know how Lyft even keeps their head above water, to be honest. When I see that they kind of outperform their quarters and stuff, and they have no technology, they're not in any other countries anymore. It's, during the pandemic, they had their best, by cutting down their office spaces and things is the closest they've come to a profit.
I would argue that I think DoorDash would pursue buying Instacart before they pursued Lyft, and I think someone like Tesla or a company that wants to have a fleet of self-driving cars would probably be more interested in Lyft than a company like DoorDash.
But why would they be interested in Lyft? Just for their database of customers?
Because
I mean, Lyft has nothing to offer them.
Right. It'll be a lot cheaper than buying Uber. That's one way they could look at it.
Because I almost feel like, okay, because I understand the database. Like if a company is going to buy another company, it could just be, I mean, like if a company was going to buy Uber, if Uber ever went for sale, which they're not, but if they did, if a company was going to buy Uber, most likely they're not doing it at any technology base at all. They're going for that 59 million user base they have in the database. That's what I imagine Lyft would go for. So I would think that like a Tesla's almost in a position where they could almost launch a rideshare app and not have to do any advertising. Literally just put it into the app store, tell 10 drivers, word of mouth, 10. And I bet you the whole country knows in a week. I mean, it wouldn't even have an advertising budget, and they wouldn't have to buy Lyft or anything, and they would have their own database.
All it would take is one Elon Musk tweet. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, I think the word of mouth would go fast, especially because whenever any of these companies come out of that space, they always pay the best right in the honeymoon period. So it would pay the best, but I think they'd also be looking at a good payment model down the road to try and make up for some of this. Cause I don't know, man, these temporary gas things and whatnot, it's not going to last forever. I don't know why would Instacart sell though? We were trying to think of the company that like we're like, why is Lyft even around? We always think it's a good thing. Like, I'm glad Lyft's here. Otherwise Uber would have a monopoly and it would be bad. But it is funny to us. We're always like, what is Lyft doing? What?
Right.
And I'll tell you what, I've done 29,000 rides since 2015. And most of them are on Lyft, because when that time in 2015, I started with Lyft, went to Uber, then went back to Lyft for years because Lyft's program was so much better, paid me so much better. But then they decided, let's just follow Big Brother Uber and do exactly what they do.
Do you think it's because they want to be more profitable?
I don't know. I thought neither was profitable. And so I was like, why don't you stick to your own plan? Because I don't know. Following Uber's, I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's a real, like in my market anyway, there's no driver benefit. They're both pay the same miles. They pay the same on distance. I know in some there might be a little different, but Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's there's so many crazy questions with the gig economy that
Do you want to
uh
hear a quick Lyft story about me?
yeah, yeah, go.
The closest I ever became to become a Lyft driver. I don't know how long ago was it. I want to say 2015, maybe 2016. I did the orientation where a current Lyft driver meets up with you in your market, and they kind
Yeah,
of give you
that's
the
I they
lowdown.
don't do that anymore, but I had to do that too.
Right. Whenever
Yeah,
they would, it was when they had the peak mustache. You would put it on your
yeah.
car. This was in the early days. And so the girl, we were sitting in the car. I was in the driver's seat. She was in the passenger seat. I was listening to everything she was saying, and she was like, "You know what? You're kind of gruff. You have to be more bubbly in person." I was like, "Well, how can I be more bubbly and personable if I'm sitting here and talking to you?" And after that, I'm like, "You know what? I don't know. I already, I didn't want to do rideshare, and after that, I'm just kind of like, you know what, maybe it's not for me. I don't know, but just the fact that I was just sitting there listening, and I didn't really get a chance to talk. She was saying, you know what, like I think you need to be more friendly. I don't know. I thought it was kind of weird.
I think that was just part of the pop. I think that the guy who did my whatever they called that, it was like mentorship or something, like Lyft mentorship.
Right.
You had a mentor that you had to
They
go
had a
meet.
word for it. I forgot it was.
Yeah, so I went over and met mine too, and I hearing your story is kind of funny because I can tell now, and I already knew this, but I could tell mine was just getting burnt out with doing this. Like
Yeah.
he was already on the fringe of like
It's
going,
like, you know what,
I'm
just do
sick
whatever
of
you want.
mentoring. No, he was like, he's like, look, man, you can turn on the app. He's like, you can decline all the rides. He's like, you can
Cherry
just
pick
take
the
them
hell
when
out
you
of them.
want. You could sit at home. He was the epitome of everything I shouldn't hear. He was like, just
Right.
sit at home, take the ones you want. I don't know. And at the time, that wasn't true because if you're, even though it breaks independent contractorship and it's a big part of the conversation, if you did fall beneath 80% acceptance, you were off the platform.
Oh wow.
So, I mean, they actually, I know these Door Dashers with 1% acceptance. It's like that wasn't,
Guilty as charged.
I mean, but you got to be. But as long as your completion rate's high. But the thing is they used to have that big flashing button. And it's like it was a trigger in your head. Like, dude, wait, what's my percentage at? Okay, I got to take it. It
Right.
was almost like I got to take it. It wasn't, and that's where it felt a little out of the hands of independent contractorship because it felt like you're messing with my head here. You're making me think I could lose my job on any given ride because if my acceptance goes too low. So I don't know. It's I know that now it's not a thing. But I don't know why they still bother putting it in there then, and I never understood why there's a 5-star
It's just a
rating
fear
system
tactic.
either. I got to say that either a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And if you thumbs down, you got to leave a certain amount of characters in on
Okay.
the record, you know?
Let
I
me
mean,
ask you
that's
this. Um, so with rideshare, is that really that much cherry picking possibility compared to food delivery? Because with food delivery, you have to worry about the restaurant location, whether or not there's parking there. You have to drop off the food because you have to go into an apartment. You're like, it's a safe area. So other than a drop off location, whether it's safe or not, like how can you really cherry pick rideshare?
well, for me, I mean, I just knew if I was downtown, I mean, for me, downtown Denver, I can tell by like, am I going to the La Quinta that's underneath the highway,
Hmm.
or am I going to the Hilton that's 3 blocks into downtown? Because the 3 blocks into downtown Hilton, I mean, this is just an easy one, is probably an airport ride.
Right.
And the
Would it show you the drop off location, or would you just guess?
no, I mean, I've been through all the stages. I've been through
Okay.
the stages that told me when it used to say the total amount of miles that you'll be going.
Hmm.
It used to show a direction. Um, yeah, I mean, like I've been through the transparency ringer, dude. I've seen it all come, go, come again, go again. I feel like, I've seen it come back in pieces. I've watched the multiplier surge come into my market probably about 15 times and leave. And
Hmm.
then it leaves and it goes to flat surge or no surge, and it comes back to flat surge, and it comes back to multiplier. It feels like every time they're down on the oversaturation, they bring the multiplier back. And that seems to bring everybody back on the platform. They know it, and then they turn it back off. I don't know. I've been through the ringer with all this, and I don't think that I think there's an easy way to tell, I mean, I think pickup location was a huge thing to me. Maybe it shouldn't have been, but that's often how I fished. I know Denver like the back of my hand, so it's like, I know, even I'm not just basing it on hotels. I know that picking up there at this time of night on this day usually means that you're going, it's a Friday night at 6. That means you're going out for the night, and people from this area usually go to lower downtown. So that's going to be a short ride. I don't want that one. I could do a lot of that in my head without any of the apps, tools, anything that helps people. This was just me having done enough rides where I just had it down, where I was like, no, but there was always, I don't know if there was ever a time, I'm trying to remember if there was ever a time that didn't warn you when it was a 45-minute or longer ride. I think you always got a warning for that. And a lot of times that even meant the airport, because our airport's way out. It used to be down on the east part of town, then they moved it way out east. So now it's, even from downtown, it's usually going to be about 45 plus. So you could just tell. You always knew you had long rides. Were you looking for that? Short rides downtown. For me, I was always an opposite player. Like I knew, here's a perfect example. I would never go to a Broncos game before or after. Even though some drivers lived by that. They would leave it off, and at the end of the third quarter, drive over to the stadium, turn on. I would go to the other side of town and turn on, because there were always people leaving bars who were watching the game, and I could whip out trips back and forth.
And there's less drivers there, I'm sure.
That's what I mean. I would just I would get them all, and it might surge a little, but like at the stadium, if it got up to like even 7 times multiplier, you might only get one ride and I'm being serious, an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Wow.
Because you have to go find that person. You can't just pull up anywhere you want.
Plus traffic.
God knows how long
it's going to take you to get out of there.
Yeah, I mean, well, you can't go anywhere in. They don't even have a place for, they never have. They've kind of always told us there's 2 neighborhoods around. They're like, you go over there and you wait. You got to get in contact with him. You got to find him, and how like people leaving a football game are. I mean, it's packs of like 300 people crossing a street at once. Like, what? I don't, it was so hard that often like rides would get canceled, and then you'd find yourself out of the surge or on the lower end of it. I just always thought it was such a nightmare that I would rather keep the wheels turning and make money not on a surge than wait for one surge ride at 7 times and pray that its distance is far or something, when really normally it wasn't that far. It was just people going home. So I mean,
Right.
it was just a pain. And I don't know, I had a different strategy than a lot of people. A lot of people would drive their night and then make sure that they got to that event as it ended. I was the guy who played it opposite and said, all right, let's go to a part of town that always has a lot of people but doesn't have an event ending.
Right.
I almost like drove away from a surge before it happened. If I was in one, yeah, I'd stay in it.
It's like 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm out of here.
Yeah, exactly. Like basketball games, hockey games. I would see these Lyft drivers and Uber drivers just drive up and line up. And I'm like, why?
I've seen that when I used to go to Lakers games before the pandemic. I would just see like Lyft drivers, Uber drivers waiting, and then whenever I wanted to get a ride, I would literally have to walk 2 or 3 blocks down just for an Uber driver to be able to find me, because it's so crowded.
Yeah. And then there are a lot of them too were also, I gotta mention that a lot of them too were also pissed because a lot of the times the multiplier was 7, 8 times. So they were just disgusted with how much the ride was costing them. And
Right.
they all, people have to remember that they always view the driver as the company.
Right.
Even though it's Uber charging the rate and all this, they almost are looking at you like, how dare you charge me? Man, if you knew what I was making out of it, you'd be pissed too. Like, I'm pissed too. I'm not.
And they wouldn't tip on those rides either, right? Because they're paying so much, right?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I only got cash tips. I mean, if I got very few people tip me through the app.
Right.
I used to have a trick that I got so pissed about people saying that they would. And in the beginning, I actually believed it. And then, as you've probably at least heard from other rideshare drivers, I'll tip you through the app. It became this thing of like, F you, man. Just say you're not going to tip me then, whatever.
Right.
But don't say that. You're not gonna. And they never did. So I got to this point of asking, and I wouldn't do it with everybody, but when I would do it as often as I could. If somebody's like, I'll tip you through the app, I'd be like, hey, can you show me how to do that? Because I get people asking me all the time. And I would make them like lean forward and show me on their phone.
Right.
I go to here, I'm like, okay. And then I can add your tip right here. I'm like, okay. And then they'd add something. And I know they can go remove it, but I knew that interaction had put something in a taste in their mouth. Like, dude, I am a douche if I remove this.
Right. That's really clever. That's a good idea, actually. Show me how to do it. Oh, add a couple zeros to that.
Okay. So before we conclude here, I do want to talk about this because I think this is probably the biggest deal out of what you do is that you've written 3 books, man. I find that, that's awesome, man. You've written, is it The Entrepreneur Cheat Sheet, Reality Check, and then your newest one, Five Foundations.
Yep.
Of
Very scary to you.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was just flipping through this, man. It's like, it's really good. There's a lot of, it's not a gig economy thing at all, but it's
No.
I don't know if any of the others are either. I was thinking the Entrepreneur Cheat Sheet might have a little more of a gig economy taste, but like this one's pretty cool. This is like redefine. Maybe I'm wrong because again, I just got it on Saturday from you. Thank you, by the way. But it seems like it's like a creating the best version of yourself.
Yeah, it's more of a personal development book than anything else. The first 2 books that I wrote, that was before I started doing gig economy. That one, it's not really gig related. This one, it's not gig related either, but there's a lot of personal development stuff here. So I think, gig workers, we're all doing gig work as a means to an end while we're working on, the bigger picture. So I think gig workers can really benefit from this book, and it can kind of figure out like, what it is they want to do with their lives, and, what are their short-term goals, their long-term goals, how they can create a daily routine that reflect those goals. And, it's a really good motivational book as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say even like even your quote on the back, this is what kind of this is what got to me a bit too after I was going through it was that you'll never change your life until you change something you do daily. And I know there's more to it too. The secret of your success is found in your daily routine. But I think that speaks volumes, man, because everybody is different. Everybody's different. And so what somebody's routine is, that's why I think a lot of self-development or a lot of like self-help or this might, like I think they're too general and like, you need to do this, you need to do that. You're approaching it from like, hey, listen, your life.
Mm-hmm.
You need to shake up your pattern. If you know something's wrong, you need to shake up your pattern, and it won't apply to anybody else. Because the disruption you need to put into your life isn't going to be the same for the next person at all, or the next person.
Yeah, I'm really good. I'm really glad you brought that up because there's also a lot of stuff that some people wouldn't cross their minds. Like one of the things was get rid of old programming. So because we're trained by society to become big time consumers. Another one is setting really firm boundaries with yourself and with others. Don't allow people to respect you. When someone asks you for a favor, if you can't do it, let them know you can't do it. Don't go out of your way and do it if you can't. And then, but I think I would say the biggest one that really changed my life was minimalism, and I wrote about that in chapter 8. And I encourage the readers to experiment with minimalism, and it really changed my life. Just having less possessions, and it allowed me to kind of see everything else in life and value things a lot more rather than what kind of car I drive or what kind of cell phone I have.
Exactly. That's funny you say that because that's one of the main ones that grabbed me because I'm in the process of. It's not like I'm a what do you call
process
those
of getting
people?
a cell phone?
What's the people who have newspapers stacked to the ceilings and stuff?
Hoarders.
It's not like I'm a hoarder, okay, but I could definitely. I was flipping through that part and I was thinking, man, I've already known this, but this is something I need to do. I've needed to do this for a while. And then the pandemic hit. Yeah, and then I've always got excuses. You can always have excuses. And right now, my excuse is I have a 15-year-old high school student that lives with me 5 days a week. It's I don't need to do it right now. It's like, yeah, well, why don't you? I mean, it's like that's not a good reason though. Like, could still be getting rid of shit. He's going to be going on his life here and not.
He might enjoy it as well. He
Yeah.
might, he might participate with you as well. And then there's a lot of running jokes about minimalism, like, oh, only have one spoon or one couch, one TV, and minimalism is different for everyone. It just comes down to how much you want to have in your life. What's the bare minimum that you need, and it's different for everyone.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for me, it's just a lot of stuff I know I can get rid of. It's just, and then until you start though, it's hard because you look at everything and you're like, yeah, I can get rid of a ton, but then you like can't go grab anything without going, well, maybe I do need that.
Yeah, maybe I'll need this in a couple of years.
It's a lot easier. I think once you just start moving stuff around, and you kind of get, and just make piles, that I have to have this. I can't work without this. I can't live without this.
Right.
And then have your pile of what you like, and that'll probably be everything else. But then you'll have to go through that pile again and say, okay, what do I need in this pile though? Like if I could only keep half.
Right.
That's how I would do it. I would just keep chiseling away until I was down to, okay, I like this.
The way I got started with minimalism is that I was kind of in the same boat as you. I really didn't want to get with anything or get rid of anything, and I asked myself, is this something that if I change my mind later, I can always buy another one? If the answer was yes, I would just sell it. I sold a lot of stuff on eBay, and to be honest, I haven't bought any of those stuff back. Once you get used to the freedom of having less and having less clutter, and if it feels like a weight off your shoulders, you just want to get rid of more stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I know that's the case. A lot of it too is I go out in my garage even, and it's just a nightmare. I see my son's like art projects from when he was like 6, and they're like in a box, and I'm like, ugh.
No, that's the type of stuff you want to keep. You can't.
Yeah, but you know what? Like I kept it all. And just kind of boxed and shoved it. There is a thing about going through and okay, from 6th grade, I don't need his math homework from 6th grade.
Right.
Like there's a thing about going through and picking like, okay, pick your favorite 10 things out of the box. What are the best 10 things he did in that year? Because I mean, again, I'm not going to want boxes in my house of all of his stuff.
That's true.
It's like I could go pick from every year he did in school. I could go pick the best 5 to 10 things he did. That's going to be enough.
Yeah, maybe keep like awards or creative stuff.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean he's a big karate guy, so we got a lot of awards around the house and what.
Awesome.
Is
he a black belt yet?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He was.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. He's not far from a second tier. He turned black belt at yeah, I want to say he was like 12.
That's amazing. Props to him.
Yeah, he started when he was 7 or 6. He was doing it like 5 or 6 years before he was a black belt. Wow. But he competes, and he was on the smaller side now. Now he's at a growth spurt. Now he's bigger than me.
Wow.
And he's got that voice like this because it just doesn't fit him yet.
Right.
It's like living with a totally different person, man.
It's like, why can't we go back to the days where you're shorter than me?
Right. Yeah. Well, but now he's more. But I will say now he's more helpful. Now he can do more.
Right. That's always.
And he's like, and as much as like he might complain sometimes too. I gotta hand it to him. Like, like he loves to do things where he can show off that he can lift and stuff. Hey, Max, can you move that stuff for me? And as I get older, I love this, man.
Right.
He's like, yeah, dude. He loves to show me he can do that, so I dig that.
Right.
But yeah, so if you haven't checked out John's books, or if you've seen him around, or if you see him around from now on, I'm gonna put all 3 links in the show notes. I don't know if John's okay with it. I'll put a link to the audiobooks too. I don't know if you prefer to sell the books or the audiobooks, or if it matters. Or
I don't have any audiobooks right now.
I thought I saw this one.
Nope. I think it's just Audible advertising. I don't have any audiobooks yet.
Oh, okay.
I did want to do an audiobook for that one.
Huh. Yeah. Okay. Well, then I'll put all the links to each of the books. Because yeah, I mean they're they're good reads, and they're not. It's not going to take you. It's not a novel. You're not going to dive in and be. It's like he moves at a pace where each thing it's covered
straight to the point,
and then exactly, and then it moves on to the next thing, but it flows well too. So I haven't read the other books. I can't speak for those, but this one is good. I like this one.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Cover to cover, it's 100 pages, just for the audience out there.
Yeah. So I mean, again, I'm guessing your other books are really good too. I'm guessing that you know, by your third one, this is probably this is probably what you consider your best too, maybe.
That one was the hardest one to write because it's just so dense in information, and it was essentially my life story, so I wanted to make sure that it was being portrayed correctly. And I'm also gonna expand on a lot of those ideas from the book on my YouTube channel as well.
So, are you done writing books?
No, I'm still writing. The next one is more about my struggle with losing weight, and a lot of or the way that people, or the way the world looks at overweight people and things like that.
Okay.
So it's
Well,
I
I was just asking because you said this one covered your life. You know, it's like,
well, up
okay,
until
well,
this
then
point.
do another one.
Yeah, I'm always writing something new.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess that's a whole different deep dive on how the writer in you became, but I'm interested in it. And, my days are so busy. Usually I'll grab something, I'll kind of skim through it, and then I'll go back and I'll skim through it again until I finally kind of get through it. But like this one, I find myself like trying to skim through, and then I get into it and I'm like, well, that just ended. Okay. Like even my somewhat shortened attention in my older age is keeping with this, and that's good. I'm not the type who reads a book to go to bed every night. So,
quick story. The way that writing style came about is because my very first book was for college students, and me as a college student and knowing other college students, I know that they had a very short attention span. So I wanted to make sure that it was straight to the point and concise. And I think that writing style just stuck with me, and that's why that book is that way as well.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, but yeah, this one's just well written. Everybody should check it out. I'm going to finish it because I'm only a little bit in, but like John just said, it's 100 pages. I could probably have this finished, even with my crazy schedule, probably in the next day or two. But so far I already know, and I'll put the link up there for all of them. I'll put the links to John's YouTube channel too. And I guess the content that we can pretty much expect from you on YouTube upcoming is not really gig related. And I love that because it's like, I kind of fall outside of that norm of what people like to create on YouTube as well. I just come from my podcast, and it's kind of funny because like even Hannibal said something pretty funny and nice on Saturday night about me. He was like, he's like, I don't know. He's like, at least Steve's out there doing other things. He's not making it. Here's how you carry a delivery order and set it down.
How to make $100.
I thought that was pretty out there because I'm like, man, a lot of people who make those videos though. You kind of gotta watch it.
I don't know if you've I don't know what video was. Roy was kind of like Roy will be Roy. Shout out to him. He was making a like a parody video. Oh, how to make $100. Oh, work until you make $100.
Oh, I thought you meant the one that was like the stick and the horse.
No, I don't think it was that one. He was just he was just like kind of like poking fun at those YouTubers who make videos about how to make $500. Work until you make $500.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, John. Well, I want to thank you, man. It's always good to talk to you. And yeah, speaking of Roy, if you're daring people, join us on April 1st, Friday. We're gonna do a April Fool's party, Roy and I.
Oh, I can't wait.
So I'm trying to already think up some weird things that like I've got a couple things in mind. I'm trying to bring it to him because I think that I'm gonna just speak freely a little bit here about Roy because Roy's a good guy, man, and a lot of people know this, but he definitely has his view. And I've been telling him lately that he's more of a variety show.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he would have a huge success with this because he likes to talk about anything. It doesn't have to be gig economy.
He's not afraid to voice his opinion.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, really, I think that, it's getting him to understand he's a variety show. So that's going to be my goal for April 1st is to like kind of make it how I see Roy's show being the most successful, but I'll make it on like a set on my show. And then while he's on there, I'll be like, see, this is your show, man.
You're creating an on-ramp for him.
But yeah, thank you, John, for joining us. And
thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we'll stay in touch for sure. Thank you.